to learn more about the world in which they were living and to meet people whom they wouldn't have any opportunity to meet in the ordinary course of events.
The agenda is to create the centralization of global power in all areas of our lives for a very simple reason. When you get to the core of this network of manipulation, you're looking, compared with the population of the Earth, at a very few people.
Ever since the Bilderberg group first met in 1954, the exact purpose of the talks has never been fully explained. The delegates meet in secret for 3 days of discussions, but nothing they talk about is ever revealed afterwards.
The secrecy, or privacy it's better to call it, was well observed, although of course inevitably, because the meetings were private, they gave rise to conspiracy theories on both sides of the Atlantic. The American conspiracy theorists said it was a plot to undermine the United States. The European ones said it was an attempt to destroy left-wing governments all over Europe so that America could run Europe. But of course it was neither.
Nonetheless, the annual secret gatherings of Bilderberg continue to attract suspicion. In 1998, the chosen venue was Scotland. On discovering this, one Braveheart journalist tried to get in.
I had a tip-off from a contact that the Bilderberg group were going to hold their annual summit here at Turnberry. I only had a passing notion of who they were. I knew they were some sort of powerful group of men and women who met every year. Everywhere you looked within the grounds, there were either uniformed officers or other officers in combat-type uniforms guarding the entire grounds. The place was literally sealed off. I personally was left with a very strong impression that I didn't feel this was an entirely healthy thing. You know, to come here, to talk, make decisions, and then go away. One wonders, you know, what were they talking about? Why are they talking about it? And, you know, how much do the decisions that they make here impact around the world?
Why the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergers, and similar groups, why are they so secretive? I have pondered and pondered and pondered on that question, trying to think of alternatives to the conspiracy theorists' usual explanation. They're plotting nothing but unmitigated evil against the rest of us. And I think part of the answer is they are plotting unmitigated evil against the rest of us, and part of the answer is they're plotting things they don't want anybody else to know about for the same reason that all of us have things we'd rather keep private.
Some of the fear, as I say, is basically jealousy. I've never noticed actually any fear with ordinary people at all. But of course it's in the interests of journalists to sell newspapers, and if they can invent conspiracies, it helps to sell a paper, so of course they do that.
Conspiracy theories would seem to be about secret societies covertly running the world. But in addition to this, conspirologists also develop theories about overt organizations like the United Nations and NATO.
It's a very common belief on the part of right-wing organizations, especially in this country, that the United Nations is some kind of military political organization whose purpose is to take over and to basically stage a military invasion of the U.S. and use that as a springboard to establish this one world government, and that NATO is the force by which they're going to do this.
The New World Order is housed right here at the United Nations. It is global government. Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer. One world, one race, one ruler. It's what Rudolf Hess talked about when he introduced Adolf Hitler. This is Hitler's dream come true. This is a nightmare. This is the tombstone upon all sovereignty for all nations for all time. The United Nations must fall for freedom to live.
Where institutions of freedom have lain dormant, the United Nations can offer them new life. These institutions play a crucial role in our quest for a new world order. An order in which no nation must surrender one iota of its own sovereignty, an order characterized by the rule of law rather than the resort to force.
World War I, World War II were both created to bring about the United Nations. They're in the war business. Wars, like bridges, are engineered. This New World Order is in the war business. And to create the war, they can then say that they want peace. They couldn't, this would never have been built without the aid of World War I, without the aid of World War II.
There's creating events in the world like wars and terrorist situations, runs on currencies, stock market collapses, which create situations of problems which the public then demand that they provide answers and solutions to the problems, and then those who've covertly created the problems and got that public reaction do something, then offer the solutions to the problem.
You know, it's so easy to fit these events into this conspiracy theory template, this prefabricated conspiracy theory, that maybe there's another way of looking at, you know, that's a little more different, a little more original, and maybe more enlightening.
All the focus up until recently has been on the United Nations, and quietly groups like the World Trade Organization were basically taking over control of international business agreements. Organizations like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank have basically been taking control of financing in the world and making dictates of how countries are to develop. I believe it was one of the Rothschilds said something to the effect once, give me control of a nation's currency and I don't care who makes the laws. Because when you control the money supply, once you control the currency, you do have the ability to decide how the government behaves, because they do have to react to monetary pressures. I mean, money talks.
So is this the ultimate Illuminati agenda? Are they controlling the global economy to control the world?
Hundreds of anti-capitalist protesters are in Washington to try to disrupt meetings of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund.
At every street corner around the IMF and the World Bank, the demonstrators have set up human chains to stop the meetings taking place.
The demonstrations against the IMF and all this were a reaction to this centralization of power and sort of a rebellion against the idea that economic policy, global economic policy, can be shaped by a small group of people who have vested interests in shaping it. And in a way, that's sort of the definition of a conspiracy.
Even when discussing things like the United Nations and NATO and even the WTO, the IMF, the World Bank, I don't think it's productive to focus on these shells as though they are the problem. Because like it or not, this phenomenon is going to exist, whether it's under these names or if they create new organizations. I think the real bigger issue is that who are these organizations working for and what interests are they serving?